The Racetrack in the northwestern portion of Death Valley National Park is a natural wonder and it's long been a mystery of the desert. It's a large dry lake bed in which stones mysteriously slide along the surface, leaving trails behind them. People have speculated everything from aliens to wind to water floating to explain the movement of these rocks. But it wasn't until 2014 when some researchers actually discovered the cause of the movements of the rocks on the racetrack. I was lucky enough to be in Death Valley during an enormous rainstorm in which the Funeral Creek campground totally flooded, and it was amazing with thunder and downpour. It was fantastic. And the next day, I drove out to the racetrack to see what was going on, and lo and behold, it was full of water, and because of the high winds, the water was actually expanding over the racetrack. Now, what would happen on a day like this is, if the weather was cool enough at night, that water would freeze, capturing the stones into the body of frozen water. And as the water would begin to melt the next day, there would be a breakup and big chunks of ice would begin to separate from each other, carrying with them the rocks. And these high winds that you can see pushing the water over the land move those pieces of ice around. And because they suspend the rocks above the surface of the playa, the rocks scrape along the wet earth, leaving these trails behind. Then the water, of course, quickly seeps into the ground or evaporates in the heat, and voila, racetrack. The discovery was made by placing tiny GPS devices on the rocks and then remotely monitoring the conditions on the racetrack. But because of the remote location of the racetrack and the rare conditions that are required for the rocks to move, still, even to this day, nobody has ever seen the racetrack in motion.